Hi, I'm Matt McFarlin.
Hi, I'm Aminah Yesuf. We're your hosts. Welcome to the Eastern Eco Podcast. Here's Matt with the news.
In news this week, star recruit Imani Bates' felony charges are being dropped and the basketball player can return to EMU's team. Also, the African Student Association at EMU connects with African students nationwide. A Black Student Athlete Association has recently started on campus, and an EMU faculty student research team receives a U.S. patent for their coding invention. Felony gun charges against new EMU basketball recruit Imani Bates are to be dropped after a plea deal. The player was the former number 1 high school basketball recruit in the nation out of Ypsilanti Lincoln High School. In August, Bates announced a homecoming, that he would be playing basketball for EMU after a year at Memphis. On September 18, Bates was pulled over at a stop sign after failing to stop at an intersection, where police then found a firearm. He was then arrested and faced 2 felony charges, one for carrying a concealed weapon and another for altering ID marks on a weapon. Bates was suspended automatically from EMU's basketball team following the incident. On October 6, Steve Haney, Bates' attorney, said that he negotiated a plea deal with the On October 6, Steve Haney, Bates' attorney, said that he negotiated a plea deal with the Washtenaw County Prosecutor's Office that drops felony weapon charges. Under the agreement, Bates will plead to 1 misdemeanor count of attempted illegal transportation of a weapon. After Bates completes a misdemeanor diversion program, the charge will be dropped completely and he can resume activity at the university.
In other campus news, the African Student Association at EMU is returning with a major comeback after the organization was hit hard during the COVID-19 pandemic. ASA's board members want to show students what the organization is all about, focusing on culture, traditions, food, and more. At EMU, ASA meets at 3 p.m. every Friday in the Student Center to talk about discussions and events. If you're interested in joining the ASA, you can stop by ASA's meeting on October 28th or direct message the group on Instagram at EMU ASA.
More on-campus news includes the start of a Black Student Athlete Association at EMU. A trip to the Black Student Athlete Summit in Houston, Texas was all it took for Tarek Bates, motivating him to create the new student organization with fellow EMU athletes. Being around other Black students in sports made the athletes feel at home, and Spates, who now serves as president of the org, wanted to create the same environment here at EMU. The organization is still growing and has plans to host an outing for all African American student athletes, as well as organize community service events. Monthly meetings are held in the Eagle's Nest, located on the 2nd floor of the George Gervin Game Above Center. For more information, follow EMU's Black Student Athlete Association on Instagram at EMUBSAA.
In other news, EMU's Coating Research Institute has been awarded a United States patent to improve the metal finishing industry. EMU was awarded this patent because the faculty student research team invented organic-inorganic hybrid materials. This segment was reported by Mariah White, Mackenzie Thompson, Layla McMurtry, and Sarah Schneider. Scripted by Maria Taylor and produced by Jordan Boyd.
Are you an EMU student looking for things to do on and around campus? Here are some events happening this week. On October 27, Latinx Student Association is hosting a Dia de los Muertos event at Big Bob's Lake House for students to learn about the holiday through food, games, traditions, and more. Also on October 27, Home Cooked. Free cooking classes will be happening from 5 to 6 p.m. in Strong Hall. Students must register. LBC credit and food are provided. I'm Matt.
And I am Aminah. We are your hosts, and this was the Eastern Echo Podcast. ISA is also...
So, let's get right into this.
Okay.
Hello. Here today, we have a special guest. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. My name is Ronia Cabansag. I was one of the founding members of the original version of the Eastern Echo Podcast. Right now, I'm a associate producer for Stateside on Michigan Radio. So we run out of the station in Ann Arbor. It's our 3 o'clock show, Monday through Friday. If you're into radio, you should listen to it.
What type of radio is it?
So I tell people it's like a Michigan audio magazine. So it's a mix of like hard news. So we're covering politics, obviously leading up to the election, but then it's also arts and culture. So we've interviewed like local musicians, local artists that have exhibitions around Michigan, and we cover everything around Michigan from the UP all the way down.
Are you happy that you landed that job coming out of college?
Yeah, I am. I feel super blessed that I landed that job out of college. Because, like, coming out of college, so I graduated from Eastern, obviously. I studied journalism. And I thought I wanted to work in audio, whether that was going to be podcast or radio. And I thought I was going to have to freelance for the first, like, 3 years, right? Because so many audio producers, like, it's tough to get a job, like a solid job that is full-time, not freelancing, not trying to, like, figure out small jobs to get by. So I anticipated that, and then I had interned for Stateside the summer before my senior year, and then they asked me to come back, so now I'm back.
Did like your time at Eastern help you land that? Like, do you feel confident the courses here helped you succeed in that, or was the more of the internship really just put all your skills that you could have learned anywhere else there?
Yeah, I definitely brought in a mix of what I learned from my internship there and what I learned at Eastern, I think. I mean, Eastern gave me a really solid journalism foundation, and then obviously everything I did at the Echo. I think that's where I got the bulk of my like audio production skills. Most of what I do right now at my job is audio production, so I'm working in Adobe Audition, like cutting tape most of the time. All of that I think I learned from doing work at the Echo and just trying to figure out how, like, what buttons to click in Audacity, that free audio production software that, like, you guys are using right now, right? So, yeah, all that stuff I got to explore at the Echo. So that was really nice that I got to do that before I, like, left college.
And for anyone listening, she had my job title
Right.
before she left here, and so this is my, oh my gosh, what's the word?
You're my podcast grandson.
Grandson. We'll go with that one. This is my grandmother from the podcast.
Yeah, perfect. My podcast, what is it? Successor. That's what I meant. But grandson sounds funnier.
I was trying to go for a protege and
Okay,
the
yeah.
opposite of the protege.
Mentor?
Yes?
Yes?
Oh my gosh. Yes.
Look at us.
The mentor. Mentor protege.
Yeah.
No, I definitely enjoy like alumni and affiliations of like people who've been in previous positions to like help out. When I do robotics, I enjoyed mentoring. When I went to the high schools around here, the community college for a little bit to like check that out, and then there's another team that I'm interested in helping out. When I was talking to Steve, a professor here that helps out the program, who helps set up the equipment.
Nice.
And I know I just really love like, you know, the inspiration, inspiring, helping people, and so like that connection that you build with people who are talking to you, and you like learn what they did and how they did it, and you get to choose like what path to get there, but you get suggestions along the way, as opposed to like somebody pointing and shooting your direction for the rest of your life. You get to listen to people and go where you want to go. So how is that for you? Like when you said you wanted to work in audio, but what was your guide to getting you there as opposed to like just blindly working and landing different jobs? Like you did the internship, but what was keeping you in audio as opposed to switching to something else?
Yeah, I knew. I thought I wanted to work in print. I was a journalism student, right? And I got into that because I worked for the Echo. I did like one gig for the Echo my freshman year just to like make some cash on the side. I didn't have a job yet freshman year, right? So, and the Echo said that they paid. So I was like, okay, cool. I'll write a story and like see if I like it. And I like loved it. I like really, really enjoyed it. I was like, I think I want to like write news, cover news regularly. And then Andrew, who you guys interviewed, was like, I want to start a podcast for the Echo, because we know students aren't picking up the newspaper around campus. Like kids our age don't read the newspaper. That's just what it is. And like people talk about newspapers are dying. Like we know that, we're aware of that, right? So we wanted to do the podcast, and I was like, yeah, I guess that is where news is going. And like I have a lot of friends who listen to The Daily from the New York Times, Planet Money as a podcast, like all these things. They're listening to them as podcasts. And then I had always liked NPR, like I grew up listening to NPR, so I think that's what drew me to audio. And then while I was working at the Echo, we had one producer who was like really skilled, who knew what they were doing. So they were kind of showing me the ropes as we were going. met another person that I interned for at a totally different show. He also like showed me the ropes. So it was, as far as like mentorship that you were talking about, like it was a lot of different people along the way.
Okay. Well, that was good that you had that exposure.
Yeah.
A lot of people like in any field, the lack of like that exposure is what drives a lot of people out because they don't understand what else they can do as opposed to like that just basically getting blindsided and they don't know how to get help because you have the connections. Now you would agree that if you needed help, you can ask somebody.
Yeah, I think so. And I feel like, at least from what I've observed in this industry so far, like audio, both audio and news, I think a lot of the hirings are like seem connection based. Like it's kind of unfortunate because then it's not, I wouldn't say it's not based on merit, but there's definitely a significant portion of hiring that it's like, it's who you know. Like it's all up to your network and you just have to know the right people and be at the right place at the right time. So yeah, I think making those connections, it was helpful for me professionally, like just like skills wise, but it was also helpful for me professionally, like getting the job that I have now.
Okay. Yeah, I've seen some people talk about it randomly on, as you just go through TikTok where it's college. People have their different opinions on college where it's like it's a big waste of time or go to college, get the degree, helps you get more money or, different stances, different reasons. The way I see it as getting a degree saying I can work with the technology and but my major thing is I'm using it as a network. Especially like considering like I'm a film major and the way that I currently see the businesses may change over time. I may be incorrectly, but it's how you were just saying, it's connection based. And so like as I take a class with somebody, maybe somebody I speak to once, but they go down to Florida and they're working on something like, oh, I went to class with this one guy and he said something, or let me see if I can get in contact with him, see if he still goes on to that skill he was talking about. And for me, who's like, I really want to work in camera, audio, and lighting, among other things, but those are my main 3 that I really want to work with. Somebody's like, oh, let's see if Jordan is still doing that. And it's like, oh, well, he still is, so let's get him down here and see if he's willing to work. And that's how I hope the business kind of is.
So can I ask you a question? Do you prefer it that way, that it's very connection based as opposed to like, I don't know. I mean, do you prefer that you're in an industry that is, it's who you know, like that it's kind of just up to who you know, or would you prefer that it was less like that?
So, you send in your information, you come in and you have that conversation. They're hiring you off your skill as well as that personal
bonus as well as a professional one.
Okay. So you got the kind of like the put in and put out kind of thing going on.
Yeah, I think so. And it doesn't have to be, I think my perspective now is that like it doesn't have to be grueling. It doesn't have to be this grueling experience where you're just like sending emails out to random companies. Like look into what you're really interested in and like who do you want to learn from and like reach out. So, yeah.
So how did you, again, find the position? You did the interview, but how did you choose to, not interview, internship? How did you choose the internship with them as opposed to somebody else? Like,
yeah, I interned at 2 different companies before the one that I work for currently. So one, I interned on something called The Best Advice Show. That's a podcast. It was complicated. At the time, it was owned by a bigger media network. Okay. Under which there was this other podcast. But the podcast was basically run, like the podcast department, quote unquote, was one guy. So it was just me working for this one guy. So there's something that feels disorganized about that. But then I also had pretty much all of his attention. So if I had questions about anything, whether it was my specific tasks or just things about the industry, like I got to ask him. And then I got the second internship was at the company that I'm with now, or the organization that I'm with now. That's a public radio internship. I picked them because it was the only, I think it was the only like news radio internship that I could find at the time. There was one at another station, but I don't think they do as much news. Like that one, there was another station, but they kind of do a mix of news and radio. The one that I'm at now is like strictly news, and I was more interested in learning more about that. So And it was closer to me, so I went with that station.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's a couple of deciding factors,
Yeah.
not just one overall.
Oh, for sure.
Okay. No, that's good.
In a different way, used a different production software. Like, I think I would do everything completely differently, looking back now with the knowledge that I have about, like, how long a podcast should be before people tend to stop listening, and questions you should ask in an interview, ways you should approach an interview, ways to structure an episode, how to like mix it with the music and make it sound seamless and make it not sound insane and make it make sense. Like, yeah, I think if I were to edit one of my episodes from back then now, I would probably throw away the whole thing and change it completely. Yeah. But at the time, I didn't have that knowledge, and we didn't have a lot of tools or a lot of financial support. Like, we did not know we were doing what we were doing. And we started, I think we really got ramped up in the middle of 2020. So that was like right when
the pandemic,
pandemic started, right? So, like, yeah, we were trying to figure it out while also trying to figure out how to do everything remotely. So we were like, I don't know, but yeah. Were you asking like, how would I execute it now? Is that the question?
Yeah,
Sorry, now I'm just talking.
It's like a rambling process
Okay.
of just like random thoughts, but yeah, how would you set it up? Like, what would you be your platforms? What would be your area of like recording and how that system goes?
Yeah. That's a good question.
Because for like example, for us, we come in here on Wednesdays, record the news and events and interviews normally.
Yeah.
And do all that like in a grouping with what we currently have scheduled for production, because we only have 4 segments: news and events, trivia, the interview. Oh gosh, yeah, and we want to add more as we go along, and so that's going to require different times where it's people going out and doing interviews and doing that kind of setup like at a certain day so it can air on that Tuesday. So production Wednesday, post-production Thursday through Sunday, and distribution by Tuesday.
Okay. So you're asking like logistically, how would I run it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Much.
I feel like we had a similar schedule. I mean, I think we tried to drop episodes another thing we did differently was we had 2 different shows throughout the week. So Monday would be like our news rundown. That's a 5 to 7 minute news rundown. We put it out on Monday so that if people were listening, they would know like what events were coming up for the week. And then if people didn't want to stick around to listen to another feature interview, they didn't have to, because we would have that as a separate interview during the week, like on a Wednesday. But if you want to keep them together and you're trying to keep it efficient, I mean, yeah, I would say if you're able, I would try and get people to record on a Sunday, and ideally you'd be able to record and produce a Saturday. Record and produce on a Saturday and then have it published on a Monday morning. I think that's how I would run it.
Okay. It's like the timing of things is always like the difficult part, because
Really?
with like different crews, different people have different times and everything. So like you're trying to get everybody in, especially like with guests when it's the main event of what you're doing.
Yeah.
Like trying to get them in at the appropriate time to do that interview and then get people in here too is always a hiccup sometimes when it's like, oh, I'm not busy. I mean, I'm busy that day. Can we do it another time? So you have to reschedule, remove people around.
Well, another thing we would do, and this is something I do at my job now, we would just bank interviews. Like, even before you launched the podcast, one thing you could have done, I know that you've already launched it, but one thing you could have done, just like record 5 to 7 interviews, and then you have your next like month set. Just, make sure they're not time sensitive interviews. Yeah, just like stock ready to like punch out. Like if there's a week where like all of your staff is really busy or they're covering other things, it's okay because you have this interview that's already lined up. And we do that for my job now too. So, I mean, and you said you have a lot of people on your staff now who are interested in being behind the mic, right?
Yeah.
So one thing you could do is just like during the week, their assignment is to like everybody go out, get one interview. And it doesn't have to be in the studio setting. A lot of the time we'll have, I know at Ford you can rent shotgun mics, right? So you can just take a shotgun mic and like, that's still a professional setup. My coworkers do that now, and I've gone out in the field where you just go with your box, your shotgun mic, your headphones, and you just go back and forth. And the audio quality is still good, and you're gonna get that background noise in. But have you heard that podcast?
Not off the top of my head.
Okay, so there's this podcast called Everything Is Alive. It was started by Ian Chillog, and He does it with Radiotopia, the company. And he interviews inanimate objects. So he'll like, it's like scripted interviews with like, the most recent one was a rental car, or like interview with a Roomba, interview with a rental car, interview with a can of cola. And they're like fascinating. Like some make me a little teary. They're super, super interesting. There's a lot of cool stuff happening in audio fiction. Like I'd be really interested to move into that side of audio, non-news. So that's moving out of journalism completely. But yeah, I think I'm interested in getting into different aspects of audio.
Okay. So your direction was the audio. That was,
yeah.
You chose journalism. Would you have thought about doing the film side with that as opposed to like being a journalism person, or like are you still happy like did you enjoy doing journalism and putting the message out there in general?
Yeah, TV news did not appeal to me at all, to be honest. Like I did not want to do any. Yeah, TV news never interested me. I think I was interested in radio as a medium for news because I feel like a lot of people are desensitized to what we see on the news. Like even tragedies, if you see a shooting on the news, it's like, there's another one, you know, like even like the worst things that we shouldn't be desensitized to, like images, we see them all the time. And everyone's on social media now too. So you're literally, it's just like a constant stream of images. But I feel like when I hear, but when I hear stories on the radio, like it forces you to like close your eyes and put yourself like in the shoes of a person who is on site. Like there was this episode of This American Life where the host was at the protests that were happening in Hong Kong, and there's just like he's like running through the street with these protesters, and you hear the audio of that, and you're like, there's no image, but I feel like that forces me to be like, what would this have looked like? Like if this is what I'm hearing right now, this is what he's hearing right now, like, wow, if I was there, like, this is what I would be hearing right now. I don't know. There's something more intimate about audio, I think.
More focused on it.
Yeah. There's like an intimacy in audio that I think there isn't in video. There's
a rule in film that the camera quality, you can lag there, but as soon as the audio's off, the whole movie is a bust.
Really?
Yeah.
That's so interesting. And you're a film student.
Yeah.
So this is like they teach you this.
Yes.
Interesting.
Because like,
I mean, it makes sense.
If you've seen different style of films, like as you watch them, and there are like certain things you don't agree with, whether the writing or whatever, but like when you're actually like visual, there's different colors, different like formats. Like you see that there's different filters that go on film, and there's just stuff that you agree with, and etc. But you can still push through them. But if the whole movie has a squeaky tone to it that you're not really enjoyable to, you're more likely to leave the viewing of it as opposed to the cinematic version of it, like the actual watching of it. It's more of the listening to it.
That makes so much sense. That feels validating to me because like, yeah, like that. I feel like that speaks to like the weight that audio as a medium carries.
Yeah. It's one of those. I think this probably falls under psychology. Is probably what it falls down to.
Probably.
But
that's interesting.
Yeah, I don't know. It's one of those weird things that you pick up. I think it was in the television production lab where they're like, because our audio has been going on for our production. It's good set because we're Team Star Wars is producing tomorrow for our the EMAG TV production for television lab. Good luck. But like the audio board messed up, so we had to do all the audio in post production.
Oh, okay.
Well, not like the interview, like that was working, like the camera was picking up the audio because we had the audio mic written separately. But when we were doing the PSAs that popped up on the screen, like the soundboard did not have the audio applied over top of the video. So
I worked the board a couple times.
It was the board. You were on the soundboard or the switcher?
Switcher.
Okay. Switcher was the one that I was like, when we did the practice, I was very hesitant doing.
Yeah, it's freaky.
Especially like after we did the start and they started talking to me. I did this twice for two different things. They were talking to me and I was not listening. No, I was listening, but I was not aware of the position. With camera 3, I was telling somebody this morning. Oh, my dad had woke me up with the phone call because I was sleeping in. And I was explaining the story to him and he was laughing. I was on camera 3, but I was originally assigned to camera 1, but they swapped us. And so I went to camera 3 with the headset, with the mindset that I'm camera one. So when they say camera
Right.
one, I was going to do camera one actions. And so for the production, they're starting to screen camera three, like, what are you doing? Like, move camera three. And I'm over here looking around, and then I'm starting to get irritated at camera camera three.
Because you think it's someone else.
Yes.
But it's you.
And I'm looking over it, and I'm like, are you hot? I'm like, are you not moving? Like, I was like, I waved, and they looked, they're like, you. And it's like, oh, you know what?
That's the worst feeling.
Yeah.
And you're like, someone's not doing their job. And you realize you're someone. That's the worst.
Film business.
This is what you're getting into. Are you ready?
Indeed. Wait till the money's on the line.
Yeah. Yep.
I don't know. Would you go into a different section? Like, if you weren't doing audio, what would you be doing?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I miss writing. I liked writing a lot. I mean, that's why I started and that's why I was an education major originally. I was going to be an English teacher.
Okay.
And then I realized I didn't like reading. I didn't like reading literature that much. I think maybe I could now. But I didn't like my literature classes. But anyway, I switched into journalism because I really enjoyed the writing. I liked the writing and like talking to strangers.
Okay.
And I miss that because I don't get to do that as much anymore. I get like little bits of pre-interviews with guests that we might talk to, so that's my I get my like fill on talking to strangers a little bit. But I don't know the last thing I wrote, to be honest. Maybe a couple of weeks ago I wrote a little article, but yeah, I miss writing. I don't know.
Write for anybody? Like, what you said you wrote something last week. What was that for?
Oh,
Was
this
that
is
part
for
of your podcast?
Yeah, this is for the show that I currently work on. Sometimes we'll have a little segment so our show is 3 segments, so it's 3 different interviews within the hour. And so sometimes for a segment we'll have a full web article that we write for it. We don't do it for all of the interviews, but sometimes if it's especially interesting or like arts and culture focused, or if we just like have photos that we want to be able to publish in an article, we'll write up a longer article for it.
Okay.
So I think I wrote one of those a couple weeks ago.
Okay. And so you enjoy writing and you enjoy audio. So those are the combination that you really do, and you wouldn't mind doing either or. Mm-hmm. Okay. No, when I did, what was the class? The creative writing class. It was a lot of inspiration in like writing, or like, draw a box, and then how you feel, match that with the size of the box. So if you felt happier, you draw a bigger box and smaller. And there was a lot of like, oh my gosh, I'm not in touch with the inner me, quote unquote. And it's like that style of writing I'm not used to, like that opening up your inner mind. For me, I'm more of that nonfiction, that realistic, historical, scientific kind of like writing type person. What type of person would you say you are?
I think I enjoy both. I think I took the same creative writing class that you're talking about right now. Like, that sounds super familiar. I might have done that exact same exercise. And I remember really enjoying it. But I also really liked like writing research papers. Like, I presented at our undergrad symposium here at Eastern twice. And like, I really enjoyed both of those. I wrote really long papers, but like, I had fun. Like, just like exploring sciencey topics. But I do enjoy creative writing.
Okay. So, okay. In me, creative, gotta get used to it.
That's
gotta start
okay.
working on that. But once I get there, we'll top tier fiction writer.
Yeah,
Number
that's
one
okay. And I think people express their creativity and just like any of their introspective thoughts in different ways. So if it's not writing, I mean, I would say don't push yourself to be, a more avid creative writer if that's just not how you express your creativity. I mean, you're a film student, know? Like, if you feel like that's where you express yourself creatively, that's fine. That's cool.
There's different outlets to it.
Right.
So, I mean, that does make sense. Different areas, different people, different expressions for different people, and then different areas for that outlet to come out to different outlets for that creativity to be out. Yeah.
There you go. Yes.
Whoever edits this,
it might be you.
Fix that. But no, this is good. We're getting towards the end of this interview. Is there anything that you'd like to leave the viewers? Any thoughts or suggestions or anything that you'd like to talk about? Suggestions towards as they're wrapping up college or starting college?
Oh, like college advice?
Or any advice in general.
Let's see. I can think of some college advice. One is like, don't be afraid to change your major. Most people do it. You're going to be fine. I feel like I got really freaked out. I was like, I have to change my entire life plan for the next 4 years. That's fine. Like, that's what college is for, is like exploring all the different options that you have. I was a double major in journalism and linguistics, and I didn't even know what linguistics was, and now it's like super fascinating to me. If I was ever going to go back to school, I'd probably go back to get like a higher degree in linguistics, like a master's or a doctorate. And like when I started college, didn't even know what that was. So like, don't be afraid to explore other options. But also, if you're dead set on what you want to do, like if you know you want to be a doctor, that's cool too. But if you're not that person, don't stress out about it.
Okay. And then, last question, we'll get you out here. Your creativity. Did you have one of those creative dorm rooms, or was it kind of like bland?
My dorm room was a disaster. It was so messy all of the time. My first 2 years, I lived with 3 other people. I was in Downing. And then my last 2 years, I lived with one other person. But both my roommate and I were really like type A, high achieving people. Like I was working at the Echo, and then we were both like presidents of different student orgs. So we had I had all like my Echo gear in my room, in addition to all of my stuff from my club in my room, and then she had all of her stuff from her club, and then we would be involved in other things. So like just all of our crap was everywhere all the time. But I feel like it was creative. We had some plants in there, and we
somewhere
had
underneath the mess.
Yeah, somewhere. They didn't die somehow. I'm surprised they didn't like wither from the fumes of just like item pollution.
Okay.
And then I got some string lights. I got a curtain of string lights.
Okay.
Just because there was there are no lights in Brown. I don't know if anyone lives in Brown apartments anymore, but there's like no light in the living room, so we had to bring lamps and like string lights.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's like no lighting in the central room.
That might have been the only creative thing. I had like a gamer setup. I wasn't a gamer, and I'm still not, but I had like a gamer setup in my dorm. I had like a big table. I had a big desk. And it was just like a plastic folding table, and I had a giant monitor that I had borrowed from someone. And then I got myself a pink keyboard and a pink mouse to match the pink headphones that I had splurged on. And then I had a laptop stand for my laptop. And it's like a nice keyboard. So I had like a gamer looking setup, and I like lit up.
Looking like the pros.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, just keep in mind for anybody listening that the messy roommate may be the most successful person in the room.
Yeah.
So don't hate on them too much. Okay. Well, thank you for coming. And is there some kind of contact that they can contact you with, or what is the show that you work on if they're interested?
Listen to Stateside on Michigan Radio. That's 91.7 FM in the Ann Arbor area. That's at 3 o'clock Monday through Friday. Really good show. If people are still into radio, I'm into radio. Everyone should be into radio. But yeah, check it out.
Okay. And then any form of contact?
Oh, contact. Sorry. You can message me on Twitter. I'm at Ronia Cabansag on Twitter. RONIACABANSAG.
Okay. Well, thank you for coming in once again.
Thank you for having me.
Appreciate it.
Cool. Is that okay?
That was good.
Okay.
You did good.